Agency Unfiltered wraps up our stay in Chicago with Paul Brienza, Chief Technology Officer at Laughlin Constable. In this episode with Paul, we talk about how clients can effectively manage their increasingly sophisticated client base. It's no secret, clients have become more tech savvy and more in tune with the digital landscape, which has the opportunity to add friction to your team's ability to consult and to drive strategy. Paul explains what this growth and sophistication looks like, how he has tweaked his model to account for these advancements, and how he prioritizes continuous improvement for his team. Stay ahead of the curve by watching right now. Well, Paul, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate having you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Excited to get into this topic. I think when we were talking about it the other day, it was really interesting, but you brought up this idea that the clients that us as agencies are dealing with have become even more sophisticated or more digitally savvy than ever before, and it doesn't sound like that's going to stop.
No, it's not going to stop, and the big reason for that is that the talent is changing. The talent that the clients have, they used to be just like us, and they were all new to digital, and they didn't actually know how to do it, so they were really hungry to hear from us, who knew just a little bit about it, but we were able enough to put together a website for them.
Sure.
And then as the web got more and more complicated, they got more savvy about it, and actually the more they used the digital means to purchase goods for themselves, they started to see, how does this work for me? How does this work for my business? So they became a little bit more savvy, and so they asked different questions. They asked different questions of, why can't it work like Uber, right? Why can't it work like this? And then we have to explain to them, and we have to unpackage why things don't always work as smooth. There's a lot of technology behind there.
Yeah. Now, when we say sophistication, marketing, digital, right, like that can be pretty broad. Like, are there any particulars or specifics as to what sort of sophistication you've been seeing from a digital or marketing perspective at your clients?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really goes back to the early days of the web. The first websites were really just a corporate brochure. They had the About Us section, they had the board of directors, they had listed out the main product categories, and it really was just a reflection of themselves. And then the websites began to get a little bit more and more complex, product databases. People could look at different products, they'd have the basic marketing bullet points of why does the manufacturer think it's really good. And then those things slowly evolved where you started in putting social proof. So you have user ratings, star ratings, and all of this, and you started to influence what the consumers are thinking about the products by what others are saying about it. And then from there, the websites got a little bit more complex when consumers were able to say, hey, I want to have a relationship with the brand. And then with that, you started seeing the little Facebook icons or the Twitter icons, and then you had those little white boxes that were the email signups. And people wanted to say, hey, look, I want the brand to contact me when there's something new. And that's the type of level of sophistication that we're like in the early days, where it's really just this one-to-many conversations. Now when you start to get to the websites, people want to have it to be personalized for them. They want to be able to say, what are the product recommendations that others have looked at, besides this main product that I'm looking at? What have others found helpful? But behind the scenes, to make all of that work, you need to have a lot of data. And that's, I think, the biggest stumbling block for clients nowadays, is to understand that in order to make all this cool stuff work, you actually have to have all of the data. And you really have to invest in gathering the data, but keeping the data updated, and then figuring out different ways to use that data to give your consumer or your customer usefulness from it.
Yeah, and that personalized experience, yeah, right?
Absolutely. I mean, personalization, it's, my favorite thing is when a client says, hey, I want it to be just like Apple. And I'm like, great, I will do that. But here's all the stuff that I'm going to need
to open a credit card, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. But everybody wants to be just like the last best experience. But what they don't realize is the amount of work that it's taken to create those experiences. And to me, that's the most fascinating thing to try to explain to a client. But then what you do is you break it down and you create a roadmap. Say, you want this experience, but then let's show you how you can get there, and let's do it in little steps. And along the way, you're going to learn from the data from that first step that's going to influence actually what you do for the second step, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So it's not just, step one and we're going to get you there, but it's actually kind of the moonshot at the end, but we'll walk down the whole process of how to get to that eventual ideal state. You break it down in the timeline format.
Exactly. Because clients don't have all the budgets in the world, right? They have desires to get to that end goal right away. But what they don't understand is they can't afford it. 2, they aren't operationally ready to do everything that they would like. And the third piece is that you don't want to do it all at once, because you want to do it in phases where you learn from the first phase, which will then improve the second phase and improve the third phase.
Right. It makes a ton of sense. Yeah. We've mentioned clients being very sophisticated, right? I want to be like Apple. Why can't this work like Uber? That's great that they're now so sophisticated and they understand digital in a whole new way, but how do we then meet them where they're at? So what does this mean internally at your agency? What does this mean for your team? How do you get and build up your teams and your people to meet these clients where they are at in regards to the sophistication and like privy or knowledge behind the digital opportunities?
Yeah, I would say that the most important thing is talent. We spend a lot of time developing a culture so people can rally behind what we're trying to do. But once you have that culture, though, that's great, but you also have to have the processes and the steps to really go out and find great talent. And talent is getting more and more challenging. The unemployment rate is at the lowest it's ever been, but really to find the people that have the really good digital talent, you need to dig deep, and you also have to ask your employees, who have you worked with in the past? Who do you want to work with again? And try to recruit them. One of the things that we've done is focus a lot on education. So we do a lot of internal training. We've launched an academy this year where we'll train people that have been at the agency for 3 years, a little bit more about the agency, a little bit more about what it means to work in the advertising digital space, because that's an important point in somebody's career where they decide, hey, am I wanting to make this a full-time career for me and to stay at this agency for more years, or is it the right time for me to move on to another opportunity? So
it pulls the curtain back from like the business element, so it teaches them about like the business side of managing an agency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want them to understand why are decisions made, how are choices and tough decisions being actually made, because then they get a little bit more buy-in and they understand exactly what's happening. So the talent education is key. It's also having to give people the ability to try new things, and so we encourage people to work across different areas of the agency to get a little bit more exposure. The other side of it is internships. We're having to hire younger and younger talent, and really starting the hiring process young. And so for the last 2 years, we've been really going into the high schools, and we aren't hiring a whole bunch of kids out of high schools, but we generally hire a couple of them that are generally in their junior or senior year, and really start to get them to understand, what it's like to be in an agency, but then also we get a little understanding of what they're like, and they're bringing a lot of insights and information into us, like how is it best to use the internet? Because look, the kids that we're bringing in, they're native to the
they're at the forefront of all the updates, changes, the growing sophistication. They're growing right alongside.
Well, they don't know the world without the internet, so they're just, their minds are just open, and they're extremely talented, and they question a lot, and you learn a lot from those questions.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great time. Frankly, to have these people coming in and they bring a breath of like fresh air for us.
Tell me about a time, if you have one, like an example, but just where we had a client super sophisticated about anything in particular, super privy, super knowledgeable about something in regards to digital or marketing, and that actually caused friction. Maybe you couldn't deliver those capabilities, or maybe your team wasn't there yet with their own know-how. So what was that gap, or what was that friction, and then how did you solve for it, if there's an example?
Yeah, no, there's always examples of friction, but there's also examples of really good things as well, right?
Friction causes fire, so.
Yeah, and then fire actually.
Well, sorry, with the flywheel, we're supposed to reduce friction.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the challenges we have, go into like some of the larger technology projects that we work on, because clients don't understand the complexity and the amount of work it takes to do these big projects that really are going to bring better value to their businesses. An area that we always will work with quite a bit is the understanding of content and the value of writing good original content, and how that is not only going to help you from a social standpoint, it'll help you from an email standpoint, it'll help you from a web standpoint. And so laying out, here's how you create a good SEO strategy, Here's the reasons why you need to have it. And then also, from a content writing standpoint, why do you really have to have a tone and voice defined?
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time working with clients on that, but it's tough for them if you don't really lay it out and explain to them why you need to do it this way, and then also all the different possible uses for that. And that's an area that we work through quite a bit. The other side of it is also just with the maintenance side of a digital platform. Look, a lot of clients think, hey, I'll build a website and then I'll forget it. And then 5 years later, find another agency and I'll have them rebuild it all. And we try to work with our clients to say, no, what you want to do is build an MVP, a minimal viable product. And then based off of that, have an idea of what does phase 1 look like complete, but then you roll into phase 2 and roll into phase 3 or 4 or whatever. And you always make just iterative little changes to improve the website, improve the experience that you're actually providing to your customer. And that's a change, that's a mind shift that clients need to have these days. It's not a build it, forget it, and come back.
It's at HubSpot we call that growth-driven design for websites, right? You have your launch pad and then very iterative. So totally support that mind shift or mindset. Now you've mentioned that when clients or digital is changing, clients are becoming more sophisticated, you've had to change some processes, or maybe you've had to make some tweaks to how things are laid out internally. Do you have any particular examples to that?
Yeah, one of the bigger shifts is just how we actually will produce work for our clients. In the past, we would do a waterfall design where we basically will, figure out all of the requirements and we'll write those out in great detail and get the client to buy off on that. And then we go into the creative phase and we say, hey, we're going to give you 3 creative concepts. You're going to need to pick one. They pick one, and then we move into the next phase. And it's very, very staged, and it's very methodical in how you get things done. The challenge with that is it's very rigid, and it's very hard to institute change as you start to learn more and more about your client or more and more about the client's business challenges as you start to work on stuff. So we've gone back and we work with Agile. And we don't do pure Agile because pure Agile is extremely rigid and it's like going from one extreme to the other. But we do a hybrid where we'll set up and work with our clients to kick things off. We'll do a workshop to truly understand all the different aspects of what they would like this project to be. And then we work with them to rank all of these things in a priority order. And then based off of that, we'll chip off a segment of those priorities and we'll run it in a 2-week sprint. And what the benefit for the clients is that they start to see a product develop very quickly. So within 2 weeks, they start to see something being created. That gives them energy and excitement to actually understand this thing is coming to life, it's real, versus the old way where you set it up and then 2 months, 3 months later, depending on the length of the project, you pull it off and it's like, surprise, here it is, do you like it? And they probably like aspects of it, but they don't like the whole thing. Right. What Agile does is it allows you to involve your client throughout the process. And at the end, they're very happy with the product because they were there every 2 weeks making decisions on what shape this thing is becoming.
They're involved in that iterative process versus waiting, to your point, the box opening up and here's the final product,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no more unboxing.
So as we talk about clients learning more, understanding more, why can't this be like Uber, or even to like, oh, now blogs have social icons, right? So you can share. So big or small, as things change and clients want different things, how do you and how do your team stay ahead of that curve? So what are your tactics to just maintaining ahead of that sophistication curve, if you will?
So it goes back to the hiring process. We really want to hire good, curious thinkers, people that want to explore. And learn new things. So you've got to hire that curiosity thinker. But we also have to provide the platform for them to innovate and to test things out. And so one of the things that we did is we created a lab called LC Labs, and it allows the team to go in and tinker with voice, with image recognition, AI, all of those bleeding edge pieces of technology. It allows them to test it out and learn. And then conversely, they're able to then plow that into aspects of client work. So they'll be able to bring that technology into client work. And so it's that curiosity piece that you have to find at the hiring process, but then giving them the permission within agency-sponsored things like LC Labs, and then allowing them to then take those learnings and put it into a client product.
That's great. So it's mindset and people, but then we all need to create labs, right? Here are your safety goggles. Now just go test out a bunch of stuff. Whatever sticks and what works and what seems impactful, find the right clients to roll it out to.
And it's a lot of work to put these things together because you have to figure out what's the right model. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like us all just going back to being kids. and testing stuff out and saying, well, this didn't work, so let me not do that again.
Putting Mentos in the Diet Coke and seeing, where does that fit into like time and bandwidth? Like how much, I would assume, I don't know, maybe, your folks are tracking their time when they're delivering or for clients, but where does labs and the testing, like how do you fit that into their overall workday, work week, month?
Yeah, it's a balance, right? I mean, there's going to be surges of client work where you basically change that percentage of what's going into innovation or thinking or tinkering, and you put a lot more emphasis on addressing the client work. But then as you're planning out the ebbs and flows of client work, where you have a little bit of valleys, you dedicate more time to the innovation side. Or there's sometimes people just have passion projects, and they'll find the time to work above and beyond just to work on that little passion project and see it come to life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular recently that came out of the lab that you could tell us worked really cool, like some cool experiment that you were able to roll into a client engagement?
Yes. So we have a client, they're a fruit grower. They grow a little fruit. And just through conversation, we found out that they had challenges with bugs consuming the fruit. Very simple stuff, but they were eating the fruit. But in order for the client to get the type of bug identified, you'd have to go to the county extension agency to get it identified. And it's like a 2 to 3 week process. It was just extremely long. And these people were saying by the time we wait 2 to 3 weeks, our entire crop,
Fruit's
exactly,
gone, yeah.
The bugs have moved on to somebody else's product. But so what we did is through just image recognition, we created a app that basically we trained it by taking pictures of good bugs and bad bugs, consumed leaves and non-consumed leaves, and we're able actually to train the app to identify what type of bug it was.
Wow.
And so we've put that out into the field, and it's being tested right now because the crops are just starting to get their leaves hopefully in a couple months or so.
I'll be certainly interested to hear how that goes out.
But that's the crazy stuff that if you just give people the right tools and the right technology, it's amazing what they can do.
It's like I already asked you what's the weirdest part of agency life before even getting there.
Well,
but hold your answer to that. Hold your answer. Sounds like you have another one. Just last question before that one. Based on what you've seen in the lab, emerging technology, bleeding edge type concepts in marketing, what do you think? Or what do you feel is the next big thing that's going to impact marketing, maybe something that you're excited about, but out of that list of bleeding edge tech and concepts and strategies, what has your eye or what caught your ear?
So I think it's the ability for the technology to understand your place and then come back with recommendations that are relevant to past things that you've done in similar situations. And so it's like, when you look at your phone, right? We've all parked somewhere or we need to go home and your phone just literally knows where you've parked your car. That's where I think the next edge of technology is going to be, where the phone, the device just knows who you are, what the place is, what you may need to do next, and it just helps you. It helps you along.
Gives you recommendations along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's perfect. So I know tonight I'll put my phone in my car, and it's going to know that I need to go home, and it'll tell me here's the route.
It'll play the first song on your alphabetical playlist, right? Exactly. It always starts with starts with the letter A.
Yeah.
Awesome. Last question for you, Paul. What is the weirdest thing about agency life?
So I'll say 2 things. Nothing ever happens with a phone call after 5 p.m. Nothing's good. So never pick that phone call up. The second thing...
We're not heart surgeons or brain surgeons. We're
exactly.
Marketers, right? That's a tomorrow morning thing. Yeah.
Stay away from those calls.
Yeah.
But the other piece that I would say is I love learning. And I'll go to work every single day, and one day I'll work with a client that's, let's say on locks. The next day it'll be like a medical device, or it'll be a piece of like sporting goods. And the diversity of what you get to work with is just so crazy. And but it's so exciting because you're touching different things throughout your day.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. If you like what you watched, make sure to subscribe to our Agency Unfiltered newsletter, which will remind you when the next episode drops, as well as send you a ton of other helpful, strategically curated agency content. You could also subscribe to our channel on YouTube or podcast on SoundCloud. And if you want to keep the conversation going, tweet me at Kevin_Dunn. Remember, keep it unfiltered, stay weird. I'm Kevin Dunn, and I'll see you next time.